everyone, welcome to the Canvas Baseball Podcast for fans, by fans. This is episode 19 for the week of August 19th. I'm Ryan. Josh is not going to be with us this week because he and his wife are expecting their first child any day now, so big congratulations to him. Another quick show note, Johnny is no longer going to be part of the podcast. We'd like to thank him for being on our show, helping us out all this time, and we want to encourage all of you to go follow MLB Memes on both Facebook and Twitter. With all that being said, I'd like to welcome our guest host for the week. He's one of our biggest fans, and he's also my brother. His name is Brad Williams. Brad, say hi.
Hey, everybody.
We're going to get right into the show this week. We had planned to start off with another story, but the Yankees and Red Sox decided to give us something else last night. If you didn't miss it, Ryan Dempster thought he'd take it among himself to go out and try and get a little retaliation on A-Rod. He threw a pitch inside an A-Rod, which missed him. Decided to throw two more, which also were up and close and didn't happen. And then on the fourth one, he finally hit A-Rod. Benches cleared. Girardi came out and absolutely went bananas on the ump. If anybody saw it, it was a pretty bad thing for Ryan Dempster to do. I mean, we had discussed it in past weeks about the potential of A-Rod getting plunked time and time after again. And I said I'm not a big fan of it right now, and it was definitely a bad look for Ryan Dempster, especially being part of a pennant race. You got anything to go with this, Brad?
Yeah, I was just, first of all, if you're going to plunk some guy, do it on the first pitch. Don't wait 4 pitches. I mean, he kind of set himself up for it. And second of all, I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier in the series. I thought it would with the comments Lackey made earlier in the week. And I also just thought doing it on that stage was wrong. I mean, the way Dempster was going about it wasn't right at all. If he's going to do it, he should have did it right away.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think that after the first pitch, if he didn't hit him, it should have been done. MLB's really got to do something here to set a precedent because they've got to suspend him for at least 6 games so he misses a start because they can't keep having people go after A-Rod and just constantly trying to hit him. It's not good for the sport. And I think Joe Girardi, and he was pretty clear. He said it was a lack of disrespect. He got thrown out for arguing. Anybody that saw it, he went pretty bananas yesterday.
Yeah,
and
he used up all his F words, I think, for the year there.
Yeah, I think so. But I guess there was no clear retaliation from the Yankees. Although A-Rod did get his time, he hit a home run actually later in the game, and I guess that's probably all the retaliation that he got.
Yeah.
But I think Ryan Dempster's got to be bigger than this, especially in the heart of a pennant race right now, and they're only game up on Tampa Bay, so this was definitely a bad move. And then I guess staying on our weekly A-Rod news, it came out later last week that A-Rod had apparently leaked biogenesis info to the MLB and to other players, revealing stuff about Braun and then Cervelli, which is one of his teammates. And apparently the MLB now has evidence showing that A-Rod bought documents and to try and hide them and conceal them, which is definitely not going to go well for A-Rod.
No, definitely not. I mean, with Braun, the info was going to come out with Braun as it was because he's supposedly going to admit to it. But I just don't see him throwing one of his teammates under the bus and then going and apologizing to him. I think that's just wrong. And A-Rod's going to have to come clean one of these days, too, because right now he's saying all the right words, like, there's going to be a proper platform when I talk about this and everything else about what he's being indicted under. But just going in and starting that stuff, this is going to get messier, like he said, before it starts to get cleaned up. And I just wish the process would move along so we don't have to hear about it every single time that it's every single day. I'm really getting tired of it already.
Yeah, and I think you used the absolute dead correct word, and it's messy. This whole situation is messy. There's nothing good about it, and especially to leak the info about Ryan Braun, I think everybody kind of already knew that was coming. Mm-hmm. But to throw one of his teammates and Cervelli under the bus, if A-Rod's doing anything to try and win back support, to gain back any kind of, I guess, team camaraderie in the clubhouse, by throwing one of your teammates under the bus, it definitely doesn't do any good for him. And I guess the whole suspension. It was, I think, 211 games. Yeah. And now there's actually, apparently the MLB has clear evidence showing that A-Rod bought documents and tried to conceal them, hide them from whoever he did to keep them out of MLB's hands. So that's definitely not going to bode well for him in the appeal process.
It might also go back just to with the Ryan Dempster hitting him. Ryan Dempster might have been trying to hit him for, doing what he did, obviously trying to lie up front, and then throwing a teammate under the bus. That might have been another reason that going back, throwing one of your teammates, if one of his teammates kind of might have wanted to hit him, maybe Dempster wanted to do it for him. I don't know, but
yeah, I've listened to a lot about this in the last 24 hours, and from the sounds of it, everybody's trying to think that Ryan Dempster is kind of the guy to be. He's speaking for the players and anybody who can't come forward and doesn't want to come forward, and really kind of throw A-Rod out there and and just kind of give him some kind of retaliation and be a voice for the people. Granted, it probably wasn't the right time, place to do it, but I think the intent was clear. He didn't go about it the correct way, but I think the intent was clear there, and everybody knew what he was getting at.
Yeah, you could tell by the news conference. He's just said he was trying to pitch inside, and then the Boston Red Sox manager John Farrell said he didn't think he was trying to hit him. He just thought he was trying to go inside on him.
Yeah, he was trying to hit him. It was clear.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then I guess moving on to our final PED story for the week, Ryan Braun had set up a press conference to apparently come out, confess, plead for forgiveness, apologize for what he did, and it turns out he backed out on it today. I don't really know what to make of this. I think somebody had come out and said, hey, look at everything that A-Rod's gone through, the backlash when he from the steroid fallout from him. And I guess I don't have a clear understanding of why he pulled out of the press conference, but I'm assuming somebody in his camp just kind of discussed it with him and said it wasn't a good idea, and that would lead to the back out.
Also, another thing is just that his camp could have also been saying, everyone's being overloaded with A-Rod today and how he's getting all this attention. And some people might possibly be getting behind him because he has been throwing it now intentionally, not just once, but pretty much 4 times in one game. And that might have been another reason for them to pull Braun out of his press conference. And I think they might go back to it, maybe not this week, but maybe sometime, maybe next week after all this kind of dies down a little bit to see how this A-Rod fallout's going to go on.
I agree with you on the A-Rod thing, but I definitely think that you will not hear from Ryan Braun probably until spring training next year. I think they probably decided to just keep him silent for now is probably the best course of action because there's a lot of people that are really furious with him, very upset. And right now, whatever he would say, there's nothing that he can really do to get people back on his side. I think they just need to give it some time to die down and let people kind of ingest it and go from there. And then probably next season in the preseason, we'll hear something about it.
I agree with that after thinking about what you just said. Going back watching some of the analysts on ESPN and MLB, I know Stephen A. Smith is kind of going along with A-Rod, saying how A-Rod's handling the media, at least talking about it to the media, whereas Ryan Braun, I mean, he's fallen off the face of the earth. No one really knows what he's doing right now, and he hasn't said anything so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on the A-Rod front, but I think there's a real key difference between A-Rod and Ryan Braun right now. No matter what A-Rod says, what A-Rod does, he can't really fall any farther than what he's done. There's a lot of hate and a lot of negativity surround him. Ryan Braun still has a little bit to lose. No matter what he says right now, Ryan Braun has nothing to gain from anything. A-Rod can only get more positive press from the way he's handling things right now. So I don't think that there's really anything that Ryan Braun can say that can help him out right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, A-Rod's getting all the press, and some of it's even turning positive, listening to it on Sports Talk today, whereas Ryan Braun, they say the exact opposite. I mean, he's a coward, he has no guts at all, and he's just flat out lying, and he should have came out earlier and at least said something.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to spend too much more time on this, so I'm just going to move on.
Okay.
Our real top story that we had planned on starting out with this week was Instant Replay expansion. There's news that came out last week that Instant Replay has been voted, and they said that it's going to hopefully be in place by the start of the 2014 season. Just to kind of break it down a little bit for you guys, the managers will hold the keys to the reviews. There will be 3 reviews per game. There will be 1 review before the 6th, and then you get 2 reviews from the 7th to the 9th inning. Not all plays will be reviewable. Balls and strikes are not reviewable. But to be in all honesty, I think this is really great. It's been a long time coming, and MLB can only benefit from this being in the game.
I like it too. There's a couple situations over the weekend I think it could have been put in play, and just over the past 2 years, 3 years, even everything, just seeing all the calls get blown, and then the umpires turn it on themselves, trying to get the spotlight, whereas it should be on the players. And I think if the managers control it, when to challenge, it will be a lot better than definitely what it is now. And really, if you think about it, the players are going to be the ones to control it, because they'll almost have a better view of the play that happened than the manager will, because they're right on the field and they can signal to the manager or whoever makes the call to challenge it.
Yeah, the instant replays will be held by a fifth official for every game, stationed in New York. So basically, we don't think that the game will take any longer. I think that it might speed things up, because the official umpire who's going over these replays will see it as it's happening, basically, in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's been a lot of blown calls, and it's been put on the national stage this year. A lot of people have seen really how many bad calls, and I guess the umpires have gotten a lot of bad press and negative press around it, and the MLB just can't afford that. And it was getting to the point where it's starting to it looks bad on the umpires. It's starting to get in the way of games, and people are finally starting to notice. And so I think that like I said at the beginning of the topic, I think that MLB has nothing to lose by making this happen.
No, I almost wish they would maybe use the World Series as an experiment or even one of the wild card series, just to see how it worked, and then they could always, move it on from there to the rest of the postseason. I think that would be a great way to test it, because what better way of testing it than under the biggest stage to see when you would actually use it and in what situations?
Yeah, and I think that's a legitimate thing. I think that could actually happen, because the playoffs, everybody knows they're important. You can't afford to lose out. You can't afford to give up anything, and by the umpires blowing calls here and there, I just think that to start with it and to kind of get a trial run, hopefully it wouldn't really mess things up too much, and especially not in the playoffs. So I think that's a logical thing to say. So I think you could be onto something there.
I hope so, because it would be great to see.
Yeah. Somebody who wishes they could replay the last week was Mariano Rivera. Blew 3 saves in a row on consecutive days, and Miguel Cabrera hit 2 home runs off of him in the span of that. I don't know, maybe this is a little bit of Rivera kind of showing his age. He's had a phenomenal year up to this last week, but I definitely think this is a little bit of time taking over for Rivera, and maybe he's starting to burn out a little bit. And I know he's gotten caught up in the whole A-Rod talk, so I think he's starting to, I guess maybe burn out would be the best word.
Yeah, and also, if you think about it, this year with the Yankees, before A-Rod came back, it was supposed to be about Mariano Rivera. If you recall, a long time ago when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar retired, he was getting the same treatment Mariano was getting. The gifts at all the opposing teams' arenas, just like Rivera's getting right now, all these ovations, and I haven't really seen that much the past maybe couple of weeks, maybe months since A-Rod has returned. And I don't think Rivera, he won't say it publicly because he's that kind of guy. But I think he's kind of, a little bit jealous that A-Rod gets the press that he could be getting.
I don't know. I guess I have to disagree with you on that. I think Rivera's as classy as they come. He's probably been one of the more respected guys in MLB history. I don't think there's definitely an issue to where he's jealous. I think a lot of it has been he's gotten questioned a lot about A-Rod, and he's deflected it, said he didn't want to have to, he doesn't want to comment about it, he doesn't want to be involved with it. So I think there's a little bit of exhaustion on his part. Yeah. I think both mental and physical fatigue, and he's had a lot of save chances this year, and maybe it's just starting to catch up with him a little bit.
Yeah, you can't save them all, and I think going back to what Miguel Cabrera hitting 2 in a row off him, I've never seen anybody, even 2 different players, hit 2 home runs off him, and that was Battle of the Titans right there, those 2 going at it.
Yeah, especially in 2 consecutive days.
Yeah, and Cabrera just, he just went out there and just did what he normally does, which is hit the ball and hit home runs. And the thing about it is Cabrera's doing it not even 100%.
True. And I guess that's kind of been a little bit of a symbolism throughout the Yankee season this year. It's been a struggle of good and bad, a lot of ups and downs, no consistency. I guess probably Rivera's been the one guy who's been consistent through the year. So I think that I'm not going to read too much into three blown saves. Just granted because he's Rivera coming off the injury, and he's been absolutely phenomenal. I think something like this happens. Yeah, it's crappy that it happens. Yeah, it happens. It's crappy that it happens to somebody like him. But if anybody can kind of shake it and blow it off, it's him.
Yeah, he's going into the Hall of Fame. I mean, he could be put in the day he retires. So I don't think it's going to really hurt his statistics or himself much. I just think he more or less feels bad that he blew the game for the team. And unfortunately for them, the two he blew against the Tigers, they didn't lose.
Yeah, and I guess, that's the big thing. The Yankees have been better the last couple of weeks, and there's been a lot surrounding A-Rod, and they've been able to – I've come out and I've said it publicly on the show. I like this year's Yankees. I think they're gritty. I think there's just something about them that I like. I hate A-Rod, and I know Josh does too. Josh has a bigger despise for A-Rod than I do. But there's something about this team that it's polarizing this year. It's something that draws you into them. But, they've hit kind of a hot spot here, and going all the way back to the beginning of the show, I think if they are to make the playoffs right now or make a run, you can look back to last night and Ryan Dempster and A-Rod's home run as the thing that changed and turned their season around.
Right. You could look at the Yankees this year as like maybe the MLB's equivalent to like a high-end Tampa Bay Rays, a team that everyone watches and doesn't really know about. Because it's very difficult to name any players from the Tampa Bay Rays, and they win all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, dead on. One team that was kind of trending upward was the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have now become the number one team on MLB's power ratings. They're 42-8 since the All-Star break, and there's some crazy statistic, I forget what it is, but it's one of the best records since the All-Star break. They're 72-51 on the season, 7.5 game lead. And I know when Johnny was on the show and Josh has become a big bandwagon fan, and I can't say I'm a bandwagon fan, but I'm extremely interested in the Dodgers. Given from where they come from at the beginning of the season, I guess nobody really saw this coming. They've had a resurgence when they brought Puig up, and Hanley Ramirez has come back. He's healthy. He's playing well. And then they're getting good pitching. So, the Dodgers are probably, if I had to look for anybody right now to be a World Series contender, it's the Dodgers.
Yeah, without a doubt. And what I find most interesting about this is they've won all those games, but yet they don't have really the best record in the MLB yet. And it's just surprising to see them. Like, they've won a lot of games, and they've pretty much turned their season around. They're going to go to the playoffs because no one in their division is going to catch them. And it's just surprising to me that it seems like they've won more games than they have, but because of the slow start, I guess it isn't that way. But you can't really, figure out how they've been playing. They're doing it with pitching, with hitting, with defense, with speed, and there's just so much energy now in Los Angeles, especially with Puig and all their players getting back.
Yeah, if they wouldn't have gotten off to such a sluggish start, they'd probably have by far the best record in baseball. They've been the best team in baseball for the past 2.5 months, whatever it's been. And I'm not going to argue with you at all. I think they'll win the division by far. They're 7.5 up entering tonight. And I don't think everybody expected to have this cooling off period, I guess shortly after the All-Star game, but they haven't cooled off at all. They've just kept on, they're lights out. Basically, it blows you away when they lose. And when that happens, you know that they're doing something right.
Yeah. And I'm just surprised they haven't lost more. Even when the Tigers went on their 10-game win streak, I kept preparing myself. They're going to lose sooner or later. And the Dodgers, they're reeling off like 5 in a row, 8 in a row, and it's even more than that. And they're just losing after winning double digits all the time. And that's why, and everyone else is losing 2 here, 1 there, every other game. And that's why they're getting that big lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Another team that's kind of been trending upward in the last couple of weeks has been the Kansas City Royals. They seem to have cooled off a little bit this week. They made the trade for Will Myers. They traded Will Myers in the offseason. And at first, it probably didn't look like it was going to pan out, but now they've been playing unbelievably. You think the Royals are going to contend for a playoff spot?
It's difficult to say. I think the AL East is going to get the 2 wild cards because I just don't think the Royals have the firepower in order to get it. They gave pretty much Will Myers was their firepower, and the Rays have it. They, again, went with pitching instead of hitting. And I think that's the only thing that's going to affect them, because if you look at it, after maybe their first 5 guys in the lineup, they don't have any power or anything that scares you at all. They're playing small ball most of the time. I mean, they're doing it with speed and with defense and with pitching. And if they're not scoring runs, it's going to be difficult for them to win.
Yeah, I think they're in contention. It's hard to say because they're 6 games back of the wild card right now. So they're definitely a ways away. They're going to have to fend off Cleveland, Baltimore, Oakland, Tampa Bay. They're on the outside looking in right now. They're tied with the Yankees. I think it's going to be difficult for them to get a playoff spot. Just granted that I don't trust the Royals a lot. I know Josh is really big on the Royals. He had them going to the playoffs this year. And I think a lot of people had that same prediction because they came out and every year it's okay, the Royals are for real, the Royals are for real. And then the first couple of seasons, they start off really well. They play well for a period of time at the beginning of the season. And then there's this long, long drought throughout the season and they just fall apart and then they just fade away. This year they kind of did the opposite. They started off hot. There was that long drought in the middle, but now they've kind of picked it up again. And you've seen signs from life that there is going to be a resurgence in Kansas City.
Oh yeah, I mean you look at some of their players like Billy Butler, Alex Gordon. They don't look like they can hurt you much, but they pack a punch, and they do it in a lot of them, and they're kind of very versatile in a lot of ways. They're good players, can play both ways, hit and play defense, and their pitching's, second to none. They don't allow many runs. I mean, when you do tag them up, you have to tag them up a lot. I mean, even the Tigers, they beat them 6-3, 6-5, and I mean, you tag them up for a lot of runs, but then again, if they can score, they might have a chance to get you.
Yeah, I guess you and I we're Tigers fans. We both are here in Michigan. You're closer to Detroit than I am, but every year the Royals are one of those teams that you don't want to play towards the end of the season because they always seem to be the spoiler. They can always jump out and bite you in the ass when you're not expecting it. I think this year you definitely don't want to see them down the stretch because if they fall any farther back in the race, they're not going to be one of those teams that are going to just give up. They're always in games. Their pitching keeps them in games. And this year, when they brought George Brett on to be the hitting coach, and things like that, that's when the turnaround happened. And George Brett's mentality on the team and all the youth and all the talent on the organization, those guys are just not going to fade away. So Kansas City is definitely not one of those teams that you want to see down the stretch here.
No, especially in the Central Division where they have a whole bunch of games to play yet against Detroit and Cleveland. They can cause both of them some problems, especially if you're fighting for best record in the American League like the Tigers are, or fighting for a wild card spot like the Indians are.
Yeah, the Royals' only problem right now is that they dug themselves a huge hole. If they wouldn't have started so bad, they'd have been right there.
Yep.
I guess circling back to the New York Yankees, Alfonso Soriano definitely has been one of the guys right in the center of the lineup. He's been the catalyst for kind of this hot streak they've been on. He was named the MLB Player of the Week. He had a .484 average, 5 home runs and 18 RBIs last week. Definitely the Alfonso Soriano that we've kind of been looking for in Chicago, and I think since he's come back to New York, there's been that energy and that excitement for him, and I think he's happy to be back in New York. Probably something that contribute to whatever he's been doing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, every time I watched him in Chicago, I was like, I kept saying this guy's supposed to be good. I mean, every time I see him, he wasn't hustling, he wouldn't hit, he wouldn't feel. I mean,
yeah, he was really a bust in Chicago.
Yeah, he was. I just think it was that whole scenery. I mean, every year the Cubs were supposed to be. This was supposed to be the year they at least make the playoffs and possibly break the drought, but it never happened. And I think to a point that just wears on you like it did him, and they weren't really doing anything to get players around him or do anything in the front office to support, his talent. So I think just he kind of gave up on them, and when he went to the Yankees, it was like a breath of, I know he's been there in the past, but it was like a breath of fresh air, just getting back to, kind of like a high-end team and having a chance to actually have an impact on a race.
Yeah, I don't want to say it because of course I don't know Soriano personally. But you're right, it did seem like he kind of gave up. There's a lot of times when the Cubs the Cubs organization just kind of gave up on the year. And when that happened, it affects everybody from the top down.
Yeah.
And I think Soriano was probably one of those guys who felt it the hardest just because of the huge contract he signed. So I definitely think that being back in New York, being in the spotlight, and knowing that he's back with Derek Jeter, he's back with Mariano Rivera, the people he essentially started with, Joe Girardi, those guys, it's been exciting for him, and I think it gave him, like you said, a breath of fresh air. And I like Soriano. I didn't like him in Chicago.
No, I didn't either.
I've always liked him when he played with New York, and I think when he got traded from New York to Texas as part of that A-Rod deal, that probably took a lot of him out of because it probably felt like the Yankees gave up on him a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely glad to see this hot streak from him.
I am too, and I think it's kind of giving the Yankees, like their superstardom back a little bit. They got a star back finally, and now with A-Rod back, they have another one because pretty much everybody's been hurt for them this year. It's kind of giving them a little bit more star power, and with these younger players they have on, like you said, they're gritty. They're starting to get a little mix of stardom and this just hustling gritty play to them, and it's keeping them alive for a playoff spot.
Yep. Somebody else who really isn't having a good week is Charlie Manuel from the Philadelphia Phillies. Well, he's now the ex-Philadelphia Philly manager. Got fired this week. Ryan Sandberg is the interim manager. I feel bad for Charlie Manuel away. I think this one maybe caught me a little bit by surprise. Been a really, really great manager. I don't think he's had a losing season in Philadelphia. He's gone to a couple World Series. Didn't he win one?
I believe so. I believe it was against the Rays.
Yep, they won.
That's the game they had to play 2 days in a row because of the rain, and they had to start it over again.
Yep, the rain. Yep,
or continue on.
Definitely feel bad for Manuel there, but I guess if somebody's going to take the fall, it's always going to be the coach. It's been kind of a very dismal season for Philadelphia. They're 54-69, 21 and a half games out right now. So, definitely a hard way for him to go out. Probably not the way he would have wanted to go out. I think he'll probably end up I don't know if he'll retire. I think maybe he'll get a job somewhere else for a team that's looking for a manager, maybe for a couple of years. But I'm happy for Ryan Sandberg. Good guy, great ball player in Chicago. He's probably going to he may be, I don't know if they'll extend him past this year. But I guess I feel bad for Manuel, but like I said, it's part of the job.
Yeah, I believe he said he was hoping to manage throughout the rest of the season, but really they weren't going anywhere. They weren't really, their pitching staff has just been awful, and they have all those high-name pitchers and then just them, Ryan Sandberg coming in, and just with Ryan Howard not playing well, and a couple of their younger guys not panning out. It's just been a rough year for him, and people in Philadelphia let you know when you're not playing well, and I believe he's starting to feel it. And I think, in a way, I wish he would have been able to finish the season, but this can also give Ryan Sandberg maybe a month to get his feet wet and to show maybe other clubs what he can do that might be looking for a manager next year, and also show the Phillies what he can do too, especially if he gets into a winning month, or at least somewhat close to a winning month.
Yeah, absolutely. In actual breaking, maybe not so breaking news, but news that just happened today, David DeJesus, the veteran outfielder from Chicago Cubs, was claimed off of waivers by the Nats. But in a little bit of a funny story, the Cubs have claimed that basically the reason they gave away DeJesus was for financial reasons. Apparently, he took up a bunch of space and a bunch of financial space, and they weren't willing to. They basically wanted to part with the contract. And then after the Nats had claimed him, they said that they were willing to possibly re-sign him next year if the opportunity presents itself.
I haven't really seen much of that because I know it just broke. But I think that, I don't know how good of a fit he is for the Nationals, but that's a team that's really underachieved this year with all the talent they have, and maybe he can spark them a little bit because they're not going to catch the Braves.
No, if it is a little bit of a spark to the Nats, then I hope so. I said it, Josh said it, I think Johnny said it, and I believe Carl said it. We all kind of thought that the Nats, and we said it last week, we've been saying it for a long time now, we all thought that the Nats would be the team to, I guess, go up against the Tigers in the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a huge bust for him this year. Don't want to stick on this too long, but if it works out for the Nats, cool. And then if the Cubs can bring him back next year, I guess good for them. But
yeah.
I don't want to make too much out of this.
No.
And then in maybe some crazy other news for another player that I guess I still didn't know around. Miguel Tejada has been suspended by the MLB for testing positive for amphetamines, I believe it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess the bigger news for me was I just found out Miguel Tejada was still around.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was retired or something. Then I seen he was on the Royals 60-day DL, and I was like, whoa. And now he's just considering retirement therefore, so he doesn't have to start next year.
Yeah, I guess he probably should retire. I know he had the thing a few years ago with the ages, and apparently he lied about his age, coming off older than he is. So I definitely think that whatever Miguel Tejada has been doing isn't a positive for him. So maybe the best thing for him to do is just leave and be gone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he's not going to do anything this year, not going to do anything next year, especially if he's suspended for 60 games and the Royals actually are able to sign a big name free agent or maybe middle end player, because they're definitely not going to bring him back, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if there is a positive for the Royals, it's maybe they free up the roster spots and contract space, and maybe they can get a decent, I guess, A or B or C tier player, somebody that can just fill a roster. So hopefully it's good for them. Well, that's it for this week's podcast. Remember to look for us on Facebook and Twitter by searching Wood with Handles. And just as always, we want to remind you guys to head to YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher. Find us, rate us, listen to it. Give us your feedback. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us a review on iTunes. Do whatever you can. Just please give us some feedback. It helps us more than you know. We're always trying to look for ways to improve the show. So please just go out there, give us some reviews, let us know what you're thinking. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Brad.
Thanks for listening, guys.